Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Megan Talks. I go by that username here on YouTube, also on TikTok, Instagram. I have a Patreon, and I have a podcast on Spotify called Divine Delectable Delirious. So find me any of those other places if you want more of me. Today, as the title suggests, we are doing a little something I'm calling What's in My Swedish Fridge. So, I am at the tail end of a 3-month long stay in Sweden, which is where my fiance is from and where I am planning to move, hopefully in the next year, couple years at the latest. And I'm at the end of this trip. So I have been here for almost 3 months and I have grocery shopped a lot of times in that 3 months. I feel like I finally have the lay of the land when it comes to the grocery store, what to get, what not to get, what we like, what we're eating consistently, and all of that. And I will say it's not that different from American grocery stores, American groceries. So in this video, I'm going to show you some things that are very, very similar, if not pretty much exactly the same as American products. And then I'm going to show you a couple things that are very different or different enough that I think they're interesting. So we're doing not only some of the stuff in the fridge, freezer, but we're also going to do some pantry things. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to start by inserting just a video of the fridge and freezer.
Yes, these are a bit big for two people, but we are staying in a house that used to house a family of like 6. So it makes sense if you think about it in that context.
So mostly in the freezer are things that you will absolutely recognize, such as frozen pizza. Though I will say, Swedes, and I think most European countries in general, are a little bit different about their pizza than Americans are because the assumption is almost always that you are going to have a pizza to yourself versus there being like multiple pizzas that people all take slices from. Another thing is something like this, which is like a frozen novelty situation. This is kind of like a drumstick, but it doesn't have the same like coating, and they don't have drumstick brand. There's a lot of brands that do not exist over here that exist in the United States. Duh. They have a lot of different flavors of these ones. We also shop typically at this place called Ica, and this is like Ica Basic is like their store brand version. Almost all the groceries that we get are Ica brand or Ica Basic because that's just what we do. There's another store called Coop that we also like and sometimes shop at. It's just way farther away. So we tend, like, especially if I'm just going to do the grocery shopping, because this one is like 2 minutes away by car. We have stuff like frozen veggies and fruits and whatnot. It's just, it's all in Swedish. So I don't know how to pronounce that even. Ortor. That is just peas in Swedish. So again, a lot of the same things. It's nice because they'll have like pictures on there for me who does not speak very good Swedish yet. So mostly in the stores and stuff, I can still find stuff that I need. So I would say the one thing that we have in the freezer that is very different than any American freezers is moose meat. So this is all the meat that we have right now because we've gone through the rest of it. But my fiance's dad is a moose hunter. He's part of like a hunting club and they, hunt moose. And then it gets processed and then it gets like divided amongst the members of the party. And then sometimes it gets sold to pay for different fees and whatever. Moose hunting is pretty common here. It's like very highly regulated, lots of different things for that. But that means that when I'm here in Sweden, our primary meat that we eat is moose, and moose that has been like hunted here by people that we know. And I think that's really cool. And I enjoy moose meat a lot more than I thought that I would have if you had asked me about it 2 years ago before I met my fiance and before I had moose for the first time. Let me put this down because it's freezing cold. There are tons of different cuts of moose meat and tons of different ways that it is prepared. A lot of the same ways that you would prepare pretty much any other meat. What we still have is ground moose meat, which you can process the same as like ground beef, ground turkey, ground chicken, any of those things. I personally think that ground moose meat is the most similar to ground turkey, which might be like an odd comparison because they're such different animals. But in terms of like the leanness of the meat and the way that it cooks up a bit drier, I just think that that's the most similar. But then we've also had like moose roasts. I made that for Christmas this year for the people that were here visiting us for Christmas. And I've had that at their house as well. And there's a bunch of different cuts of roast. So the same way that like beef, there's all these different like cuts, but essentially you do kind of the same things to them. There that exists with moose as well. So now on to things that are in the fridge. The one thing that we have that is a very, very Swedish in this fridge that is kind of would be maybe unrecognizable to other people, because a lot of these other products are essentially exactly the same things that you can get in America. They're just packaged in a Swedish way. So I'll show you some of those things. But the very Swedish thing that we do have is some palt. So palt is like the Swedish form of like a dumpling. It's a very, very traditional Swedish food. It's like a mixture of some different types of flour and I don't know exactly what. We just have like a palt mix. My fiance made these the other day. They store really well, they freeze really well. You can make them a couple different types of ways in terms of like what goes inside of them. So traditionally, you put like bacon or pork of some sort inside of them, and then you let them cook for long enough that that pork also cooks on the inside. The last time we made it, I made like cheesy palt, so I put cubes of cheese on the inside, and I really liked that. And then you eat them with like you eat them heated up. You can also eat them cold, but typically you eat them heated up with either then like bacon on the side if you haven't put it inside of the palt. Definitely tons of butter, and then often lingonberry jam. We don't have lingonberry jam right now, or else I would show you. But that is like the traditional way to eat them. So this is really the only like hyper Swedish thing that we have. Most likely, most Swedes have eaten palt sometime in their life. Otherwise, most of the stuff that we have looks very similar to American things. It just might be in a slightly different packaging. This is like an exact type of packaging I know that you can get in the US, but I do think the flavor of this is a bit interesting, and I haven't personally ever seen this mayonnaise at a grocery store in the US, but maybe I'm not looking in the same way that I'm like looking and observing all of the things in Sweden, you know? I do feel like Sweden takes their sauces very, very seriously, and that in the grocery store, there is a lot more like pre-made sauces than we have in the US. For example, they have like tube aioli of so many different varieties. They had like 3 or 4 other flavors of like Hellman's mayonnaise specifically, as well as like original. And then they also have Bernaise sauce is super, super popular in Sweden. So they have like pre-made Bernaise sauce as well. That's another sauce that's like readily available in like a ton of different flavors, which is interesting. I do think this is a particularly Swedish thing. And it's funny because it's like American hamburger dressing is what it's called. And it's like a burger sauce, but pre-made and like already ready to go. It tastes very similar, in my opinion, to like a Freddy's sauce or like any burger sauce that you're getting, where it's maybe a mix of like mayo, ketchup, maybe a little mustard, and then like pickle juice. So it's kind of got like a tangy, creamy flavor. Very, very similar to things that you can get in America, but just kind of hilarious that it's like specifically called American hamburger dressing. Also, speaking of other sauces, this is how their like typical mustard, I think this is a brown mustard, is stored. And they do have like jars of more of the like stone ground mustard or more of like the grainy mustards, but I just find this hilarious because it just reminds me of a tube of toothpaste. But this is mustard and it lives in the fridge. One thing I want to show you that is not at all like remarkable or super Swedish is bacon. But I do find bacon to be an interesting thing here because it is so much cheaper in Sweden than in the US. And I don't know if that's because of the way that it's packaged, like the quantities that it's packaged in, or if it is just more readily available. This is even specifically, I believe, yeah, Swedish, this little thing. I don't think you can read it, but it says that it's meat from Sweden. So this was like raised and processed in Sweden. I also wanted to show you this specifically because I got such an insanely good deal on this bacon. It was 5 packs for 50 kroner, which is just over $5. So each of these packs it's 7 slices of bacon and cost a little bit more than $1, like US dollar. And I think that's phenomenal. And I got 5 packs. So 2 of them went in the fridge and 3 of them are in the freezer right now. Another thing that should look very, very familiar to an American eye is just classic sliced white bread. Though I will say this particular brand, the actual loaf of bread is like crazy long. This is less than half of the loaf. And I've already even cut off some of the packaging because it's truly like when we first get it, I can't even hardly fit it in the fridge. I have to like finagle it in a specific way because it is such a long loaf of bread. I don't know why. I also think that Sweden has like drinks figured out in a way that is very different than the US because there's so many options for like fruit drinks and like different types of soda and different packaging that soda is in. And there's a lot of like 2 liters. Like they have a phenomenal aisle and a half of drinks. Anything that you can think of that we have in America, they also have here, plus so much more, I think. I really like this. This is just the Ika brand again. This is an apple drink, and I also really like the pear drink. And they do have just straight up fruit juice here, like apple juice and orange juice and stuff like that. And I haven't actually tried any of that. This is more of like a soft drink, like it's bubbly and delicious. And as you can see, I've used a decent amount of it. Also make great like mixers for alcoholic beverages. To show you guys this Coke bottle. This is 1.5 liters of Coke. You can also get 2 liters, but I think it's funny that they're all shaped in this like slightly different way than our 2 liters in the US are shaped. Another thing super familiar, but maybe different types of packaging is the milk. So, and also like the way that the milk is categorized. So this is like melon milk, and melon means, I think it's melon. I can't remember exactly the pronunciation, but that means middle milk. Versus this is the whole milk. So this is like their version of like 1 to 2% milk. It's actually 1.5% fat milk. And then this is the whole milk. So we get this for like everyday drinking, cereal, that sort of stuff. And then I get this because I like it in my coffee and tea. Very familiar again, but in a very different situation and packaging is the cheese in Sweden. So quite often cheese is like comes in these big huge pieces, and then you use a cheese slicer to like peel, or cheese peeler, I don't know what you'd say, to like slice your own slices of cheese. And that's super typical. They also have like normal shredded cheese. I haven't ever seen any pre-sliced cheese, and again, most households that I've seen have like a block of this kind of cheese. You can use it for a lot of different things. Another thing I want to show you guys real quick that I'm going to try to not be so loud with this packaging, but it's just the way that you get produce in Swedish grocery stores is a little bit different than American ones. In American grocery stores, you typically have like a plastic bag that you put your produce into, and then they weigh it and like price it at the main, like when you're checking out. In Sweden, all around the produce department are little scales where you go in and select what you have, and you print off your own sticker of what you have. And so this is for apples, and 27 kroner is about $2.70, or probably about $3. And I got 5 apples. So I don't know if that's a super good deal or not, or like where that relates to apple prices in the US, but I do just think it's interesting. Like you do have to kind of weigh out and do all of your own produce weighing yourself. Lastly, I'm just going to show you very few pantry items because truly most of them are essentially exactly the same as in the US. This is cornflakes, which kind of just made me laugh because, like, I don't know, you would think that, like, oh, go to Sweden and eat cornflakes for breakfast doesn't sound like what you would do, but it is. It's the same as America. They have tons of different types of cereals. There's tons of familiar cereals, even familiar brands of cereal. And then there's also tons that are like a little bit different. I feel like that's the case probably in every country, and even probably in different areas of the United States. Something that is a little bit interesting is the fact that Swedes recycle like everything, and they're very recycling centered. So you have a lot more options for things like sauces and soups and whatever in these like cardboard packages. And this is definitely like the cheapest brand of this, or the cheapest version of like a pasta sauce. There are also jarred pasta sauces. We're just using this for lasagna, so I don't necessarily care that it's just like the cheapest brand. Then you have stuff just like pasta, and they have tons of different options for like pasta shapes. Same types of things that you would see in the US, and same with like rice and grains and any type of like flour, sugar, oats, like all of that stuff. Very, very similar to what we have in the US. They even have stuff like international things, like this tikka masala jarred sauce. And they actually had like 4 or 5 different options for like South Asian style sauces. And then they had some other like Eastern Asia style sauces. They have Middle East style things. Like they have a decent amount of sections in the grocery store for like international cuisine. So that's very nice. I'm gonna make a little yeah, tikka masala later this week. So yeah, that's what's in our Swedish fridge. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was interesting. I hope that it told you a little bit more about Swedish culture and the fact that there are so many similarities to things that we can find in America, just often with a different like Swedish twist, or there are some things that are entirely unique to this country. I really love this country. I'm very excited to move here eventually. Could not come soon enough. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.